Ladies and gentlemen, I am Scott Barsky, the president of the Eastern PA Board. I'd like to welcome you to our virtual event, Victims or Victors. We'll be hearing from Steve Shalowitz, the acclaimed host of his podcast, The One-Way Ticket Show, and the host of JNF's podcast, Israelcast, as he interviews our very own Marina Furman this evening. Many of us know Marina as JNF's Executive Director of National Major Donor Advancement. But there are some who don't know the scope of Marina's story before she became the renowned speaker, activist, and refusenik we know her to be today. Tonight, Steve and Marina will discuss her journey of survival and her journey from the USSR to Israel and then to the US. Now, without further ado, please welcome Steve Shalowitz.
Really just a big thank you to Marina and to JNF. Hopefully you can all hear me now. Nod your heads if you can hear me. Great, everyone can hear me. You know, this is Zoom after all, so, you know, you just want to make sure that everything is all locked and loaded. Again, first of all, many thanks to JNF for asking me to participate, and also thanks to Marina as well. And even though I'm in conversation with Marina, very much like the rest of you, I'm also a participant, because when Marina Furman is in the house, there's an awful lot to learn from and an awful lot of inspiration to get. So I'm getting that learning and that inspiration as well from you, Marina. So thank you for what you're going to be sharing with us. So it's 5:03 right now here on the East Coast, and we're going to be in conversation for just about 30 minutes or so, just so you can kind of gauge timing. And then we're going to open it up to maybe 5-10 minutes worth of questions. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I may get to them during our conversation, or I'll get to them after the conversation is over. I already have 2 questions lined up. Samantha from the Philly office solicited questions from the crowd, and so we do have 2 questions already. But again, if you'd like to submit a question, please put it in the chat. I promise to multitask the best I can to try and get to your question, or at least to incorporate it into the conversation. So really, without further ado, Marina, great to see you as always, and really so glad that you are part of this evening and you really helped to arrange it. And I really want to start out with what happened yesterday, which was Yom HaAtzmaut, because you first arrived in Israel in 1988, after so many years trying to leave the Soviet Union, trying to get to Israel. And I'm wondering if you can take us back to that moment when you first arrived in Israel.
Thank you, Steven. Everyone can hear me, right? Steven, really, I know you do it as volunteer, and I know how much time we spent yesterday trying to make this as engaging and interesting as possible. So thank you so much, and thank you to the staff who helped make this happen. It seems like a simple thing, but requires a lot of work. And of course, to our wonderful president, Scott Barsky, thank you for a wonderful introduction. I see First Lady of JNF waving to us, Lauren Laserbraham. Thank you for joining all the way from San Diego. And another First Lady of JNF, Marcy Robinson, and to everyone who are not First Ladies, but will be one day, thank you so much for joining us. And yes, yesterday was a very, very special day. It is always special for our family. We did land in Israel on the actually 40th anniversary of the State of Israel. On the eve of Yom HaAtzmaut, and some of you heard this, but as we were landing, fireworks were going on in Tel Aviv. And my father-in-law, who suffered so much and was also arrested along with his son and lost his entire family in Holocaust, looked in the window, saw the fireworks, turned to Lev and me and said, it was worth suffering all these years to be greeted like this. So we landed at night. We had members of Knesset, many friends who gathered at the airport to greet us. It was absolutely surreal. I will never forget it. My daughter Aliyah was 13 months old. Plane landed at 2:00 a.m., but she was waving to everyone and charming everyone from the beginning. Surprisingly, Israelis were calling her Aliyah, not Aliyah, which was a bit surprising. But it's been 32 years and it feels like yesterday. I could have never imagined what life will bring with it, what freedom bring with it once we stepped off El Al plane in Israel.
Right. Thanks for sharing that memory, Marina. Well, you know, the topic of this conversation today is victim or victor, okay? Or victor or victim, however you want to prioritize them. And obviously, we're living in unprecedented times right now. Life creates many obstacles for many people. People have lost their livelihoods, lost their jobs, lost their dignity, lost a lot of money, etc. So many challenges in life. And I'm wondering if we can pivot for a moment and if you can just sort of provide your thoughts really on personal responsibility on determining whether one becomes a victor or one becomes a victim.
Yeah, it's, you know, Steven, when we originally planned this live event back many months ago, this conversation was going to be very different.
Yeah.
And for a long time now, I've been thinking, probably since my grandson, my beautiful Zevushka, was born, what makes one a victim of circumstance versus a victor and owning its own life? And I think that question today is the number one question really people have to answer. Life changed dramatically in the last 2 months, and we don't know where we are. For me, it is as difficult as for everyone else. The fact that I survived KGB and socialism and cancers doesn't mean that it's easy. I think if anything, it makes it harder. I think as certain things for vets trigger post-traumatic stress disorder, for me, the lack of freedom, the uncertainty brings a lot of bad memories. And the tragic fate of my family during Holocaust, my mother being hidden and stuck really in a hole in the ground for 2 years without really food and company or anything to sustain her at 9 years old. And how she came out of it and how she persevered. I think if we able to answer this question to ourselves, when this finally ends, we will be in a good shape. And the more I think about it, I think mentally, whenever we face adversities, challenges in life, and everyone does at some point or the other, when we enter that journey, that painful journey, we need to decide, what are we going to be? Are we going to be a victim or are we going to be a victor? And what made refuseniks, a few hundred people in the Soviet Union facing the most oppressive, cruel dictatorship, to make that decision against really any rationale. The government, who, according to Soviet statistics, killed 20 million people, that no, we're not going to be a victim of this regime. We want to be free. We want to live in Israel, and we're going to take our fate in our hands and pay the price. And I think that readiness, that ability to know that you are ready to make a sacrifice, makes you a leader. I think the moment that someone says, I'm not going to sit in my house, I'm not going to think about all the things I don't have and all the people I miss and all the shows and golf and baseball games that are not there for me and how terrible it is. You know, if you switch your thinking and you say to yourself, what can I do to make it better for other people? And it's a simple thing that basically everyone knows.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Marina, when did you know that you wanted to become a victor and that you didn't want to have victimhood weighing on you? At what point in your life?
I think when I had my first very serious encounter with KGB, when they were beating me up, telling me that I needed to um, apologize for trying to organize protests against people not being allowed to leave, and they would let me go if I do so. And that beating was pretty cruel. And somehow I managed to stand my ground and say that I will continue to fight for as long as I'm alive. When I left that encounter, I knew that I did not know I was a victor and that I will persevere and I will not cave in. But I knew I had it in me and I just had to continue for that strength, finding community, find people to inspire me to continue to fight. And
And I'm
eventually,
wondering, where did that strength come from? And was this a voice? Was it a moment? Was it an epiphany? What was that?
I think, Stephen, everyone has that strength. I think that everyone on this Zoom call had moments in their life when something very difficult and something very painful had happened. And instead of falling apart, you chose to fight, to do whatever you need to survive and to thrive. And I think you just need to believe in yourself. And you need to look around and find an inspiration.
Well, certainly you had your mother for an inspiration, and I'm wondering about her and her decision to continue going on. I mean, as a child, 2 years living below ground with nothing. What was that catalyst for her, and did you ever discuss that with her?
Um, I really didn't, and to be quite honest, the horror of my mother's life and survival was something that I really understood only after she died. She didn't talk about it. I saw in you that life was very difficult for her. And what always was an inspiration to me, right? You survived Holocaust. You witness and experience unimaginable cruelty. You lose your entire family, and yet you decide to have a child. How do you not lose faith in humankind? How do you believe that it's worth having a child in that country, in that time? What kind of optimism and inner strength do you have to have?
Right.
And that, till this day, to me, is a shining example of how to never lose hope and never lose belief and always know that something better is to come.
It's really about the unknown, isn't it? And are you afraid of the unknown? And what message would you have for people when it comes to the unknown? Because we're really living in a period of unknownness, if I can use that word, if there is even such a word.
Well, if you don't know the word, then I will definitely not know.
Yeah, English is my first language, by the way, Marina.
Well, your first language, you speak it very well.
I try. Let me tell you, I try. But the unknown, shall we say?
Listen, I think that uncertainty is a one of the biggest enemy of mental health of any human being.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to deal with. And especially now, there's nothing to look back at and say, this is how they dealt with pandemic. It didn't happen in our lifetime. And, you know, being a refusenik meant uncertainty. Really, every single day could land you in prison, in major harassment, and like everything else in life, you learn to deal with it and live with it. But as refuseniks, we could look back at people who fought for State of Israel, incredible heroes of all wars of Israel, and leaders, and learn from them. We don't have that now. We have to find in our own community people who will help us deal with this uncertainty. And for me, I think that all of the people, majority of the people on this call are part of the JNF family.
Right.
And really, I always loved and valued JNF donors who give a lot of money to support organization that really helps Israel every day, that give a lot of their time. I have a lot of people on this call who spend time that they could be in the better times going to movies and showing and playing golf, trying to make our work easier, more successful. And that we now have this opportunity to take ourselves out of our apartments, homes, wherever we are, and think about people in Israel and people who more than ever before need our help. You know, we have Alei Negev, this most incredible rehabilitation village for severely mentally and physically disabled people. Those nurses, those doctors, those helpers who have to be there, they can't leave these children, these people alone for 1 minute. They don't have a choice. They have to be there. And they don't need convincing.
Right.
For them to be able to know that JNF supports them, that they have all of us far away, understanding, knowing what they're going through, I think it gives us tremendous purpose and opportunity not to see our misery, but to lead and to become victors and lead somebody else to a better life. I think it's a rare gift
Marina,
that
I have to tell you, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I'm a big lover of quotes. And I was reminded of something that Ralph Waldo Emerson said, and I want to quote him here. He said, "The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well." Unquote, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I wanted to bring that into the conversation because when I read that, the one thing that I thought about was what you just said, the people at Alei Negev, for example, or the people throughout Israel that are doing just remarkable things that have a sense of usefulness, that are doing honorable work, that are doing compassionate work. And don't you think that at times like this, it's taking ourselves out of our own surroundings, really, right? Our own confinement. And many of us are in very nice confinement, right? But taking us out of, and thank God for that, but to take us out of confinement and to have that compassion and to be useful in some way. And certainly people in Israel, Israel's been affected like 184 other countries around the world, but certainly the people in Israel, like at a place like Alei Negev, for example, are really doing God's work every day, even at a time like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think in order to deal with life's challenges, we need people to love us, people we love, and we need people who can inspire us. And I
Right.
think that those heroes today in America, who deliver our Amazon packages, and obviously all the doctors and healthcare professionals. We never once thought about them as heroes, and we now see who is really important in life. And I think at the same time, I think we're all rethinking what is important. And I think charitable giving today probably is a lot more difficult. If maybe you could give $1,000 2 months ago and not really even notice it, today it might be something really significant. And I think the ability to give, to see the bigger picture, to be a hero, even if you don't work in healthcare, and you can comfortably sit at home. I think it's a gift. And I was thinking a lot about this specific time, and when I talk to our supporters, is it the right thing to ask people to donate money to JNF? Because it's tough. It's tough. People lost money in stock market. Businesses are struggling. And even those who are very, very comfortable people, nobody's comfortable, because that uncertainty is a dark cloud above our head. But if you can find courage and make that donation, and I'm asking everyone on this call to do so, I think you'll feel good. I don't think you feel good. I know you will feel good.
Absolutely. Well said. I want to go back to JNF sort of at the end of our conversation, and I'm mindful of the clock. We have about, it's 5:23 right now. So we have about 5-6 minutes before we open it up to Q&A. I have 2 questions here. There's 1 question in the chat. If anyone would like to ask a question of Marina, please, again, put it in the chat. The chat bar is at the very bottom of the screen. Just mouse over it. I think everyone probably knows how to do chat right now. Hopefully you all know how to do it. Marina, when we go back and talk about the refuseniks, this is something that I find very interesting, because all of you refuseniks lived under just unimaginable conditions. What do you think it was that made some of them leaders come out of this, and what can we learn from that? In other words, the Spanish have an expression, no hay mal que por bien no venga, which means there isn't anything bad for which good doesn't come. And as my late grandmother would say, gamza letova, even this for the good. So I'm just wondering, what was it about those refuseniks that really became, leaders and superstars in their communities? And what do you think we can learn from them?
I think every refusenik was different. But what really made refusenik heroes is people like Connie Smuckler, who I see in my window, Connie Wave, who were to us what we are to Israelis today. When you're on the edge of the precipice and you're about to fall and you need all your courage, if there is a hand to hold your hand and to pull you up, then when you know that hand exists, those people exist, and you can have that moment to look into yourself and find the courage. I think a community. There are no heroes without community. And
as they say, there are no leaders without followers, right?
There are no leaders without followers. And, there's not one person ever, not a leader, not a hero, who didn't have someone in their life to help them see heroes in themselves. Some of us need just one person, some need 2 or 3, some need a family. But without each other, we're no one.
So it sounds like you all fed off of each other's energy, really, to move it forward. we've had a rather heavy conversation, I will say, Marina, but I think a rather important one. We have a couple moments left, and I want to rather end on a light note in just the couple moments that we have before I get to the questions, okay? And, you know, you've been to Israel, I don't even know how many times. Of course, you first went to Israel in 1988, as you just mentioned a moment ago. What were some of the more memorable moments that you had in Israel, especially as it relates to JNF and any interesting JNF projects? Are there any standouts for you?
Well, every JNF project to me, it's like a child. It's a special thing, you know. The road playground where children can play without waiting for missile to hit and thinking where they're gonna run to the bomb shelter. And to me, it's just the vision. You know, this October, after many, many years of attempts and planning, we had a EPA board mission to Israel, and Scott and Rob Kitchener and Barney's and whoever else is on the call were there with us. And we've been together. We were wonderful, happy, dysfunctional family. We are for many, many years. And to have that week's journey through Israel and just to see a vision and see Beersheba, see the lake in Beersheba. I mean, lake in Beersheba, really? I mean, Im Tirtzu and Zo Agada, you know, if you wish, it's not a dream. And that we were part of it. I think it's not like project or memory. It's a feeling that you get that, you know, you play God. Like you create water that wasn't water. You create communities, you change geography of the country. And to witness, to be there with leaders of the Eastern PA who've given their life really and tremendous resources to this organization and to Israel, it is really a gift, you know. And I think what makes me happy person most days is that how lucky I am. You know, I stop myself really every day, at least once a day, especially now. And I say to myself, you know what, Marina, you are a victor because you have amazing family. My daughter is in the police academy. My older daughter works for the government and was one of the people who took Governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Wolf, to Israel this January and walked halls of Yad Vashem with him. I've had experience in life that made me sure that at least in some ways I did the right thing. I stood up to my fears. I chose to be a victor because I knew and I believed in our Jewish community. And as a community, as the people, we are victors throughout history. Every time, even when we were destroyed, when we lost 6 million, we came back with the country that we built through tremendous sacrifice. We just commemorated Yom HaZikaron, where Israel remembers its fallen. And somebody, you know, I saw it on Facebook, somebody posted that there are 2 sirens in Israel, one in Yom HaShoah, that reminds all of us of the price for not having state of Israel, and one in Yom HaZikaron that reminds us of the price we paid to have state of Israel.
Right.
And
well, you know, Marina, it sounds to me that what you're really saying goes back to what you said a moment ago also about the refuseniks, that everybody got energy off of everybody else because it was a sense of community. And whether it's JNF or whether it's Israel as a whole, is that everybody gets this energy off of everybody else. The energy feeds energy, which is really, really a beautiful thing, especially in the JNF world. I'm super mindful of the clock, and I try to be a man of my word, Marina, so I want to keep us in time.
Makes one of us.
What? Come on now. I know you pretty well. I know that you're a woman of your word as well. And I do have a couple of questions that, if you don't mind, that we field them. And again, if anyone has any questions, put them in the chat. The first one came in from Kara Barsky, and she wrote, pertaining to COVID-19, what does Marina think the millennial and younger generations need to keep in mind regarding perseverance during a difficult time like this?
Wow, Kara. That is quite a question. I think that millennials, for many of them, this will be the biggest gift because it gave this young generation an incredible opportunity to test their strength and see that they can persevere and can survive, and not just survive, but to live and to enjoy life. You know, I'm lucky enough, a lot of our young Gen F friends accepted my friend request on Instagram, and I see what people are doing and people are saying, and keeping everyone's spirits up, and volunteering, and coming on calls like this and donating. One of the Gen F members, Future Today, made a gift of $1,000. And I think it's an opportunity. It again, you know, you choose to be a victor, you choose to be a victim. You can feel pity to yourself, or you can say, you know what, I can do incredible things and tell stories to my children.
And you know, the way I look at it, Marina, just to build on that, is exceptional times lead to exceptional people.
It leads to regular people understanding how exceptional they are.
There you go. Another question came in from, let's see, we have, apart from this, we'll have two more to get to. This comes in from Andrea Gottlieb. Thank you very much, Andrea, for writing in. She wrote, you have been, that means you, of course, Marina, you have been through so much in your life, from KGB to cancer. I'm sure there were times when you wanted to give up. What advice do you have now on, what advice do you have on now to keep going, for people to keep going?
Thank you, Andrea. I think that, again, looking around, seeing, it's a very trivial answer, seeing what's good in your life, and finding inspiration, and knowing that we all are very strong people. You know, we're genetically strong. We come from the Am Israel that persevered in so many hopeless situations. And then, you know, everyone has something in their life that makes them happy. For some, it's music. For some, it's their children. You know, even though you see them 24/7 now, and everyone has something. And reaching out to people, I believe that friends are much better shrinks than shrinks.
Well, it's all about community. I mean, that's what psychologists and psychiatrists talk about whenever you see them on TV. It's all about being engaged. I mean, apart from this COVID-19 isolation, those people that live the longest, among other reasons, are because they're very active and they're engaged with their communities or with a cause, right? So it's all really going back to this whole notion. I think that's one of the key things coming out of our conversation. It's all about a sense of community and a commitment to community and a commitment to service. You just brought up children, and we have a question in from Michelle, who asked, when did you start telling your story to your children? That's a good question.
I wonder if Aliyah is on the call. You know what? I started telling Aliyah and Michal our story before they could understand anything. And Aliyah participated in the very iconic radio show on WHYY in Philadelphia about resilience, hosted by Dan Gottlieb, who many people know. And he was talking about what makes people resilient. And with Aliya's case, he said that it's pride in your family. It's, again, I told them, we won. These are all the terrible things that happened to us, but look at the life we have. And Aliyah also went on many speaking tours with me when I lived in Israel, and I came to the US to raise money to settle Soviet Jews in Israel. She didn't really speak English, and she came with me and she spoke and she told the story from her perspective. And I think both of them, when somebody doesn't know who refuseniks are or Soviet Jewry movement, they get very upset. So I think it's never too early. Be proud of who you are and what you did. And I owe my mistakes, and I made many. And I always come clean to my children, even though they know I'm perfect.
And all of us on the call agree, Marina. I guess this will be the final question. We have just about 3 minutes left, and it's a rather big question. It comes in from Fern, who wrote, please ask Marina.
Hi, Fern.
Are you there, Fern?
Oh, I see you, Fern. Fern and I traveled to, Fern, by the way, is from New York.
Okay.
And she's my beloved friend who I don't see enough. And we traveled to Russia together. How many years ago, Fern? 10, 20?
She's muted, so.
She's muted. Okay, yeah, many years ago.
23. She's holding up a lot of fingers. So 23.
I think it was about 35 years ago.
No, because we only came to Israel 42.
It's less than that. It was like 1993.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 27.
I took a video of you on the airplane. I said, on the way there, I said, how do you feel about this? And you went, oy vey.
That was very eloquent.
What impressed me was the number of non-Jews who came to see you every night in the hotel in Moscow. And they were dissenters, they were supporters, they were still dear friends of yours. And I think that they weren't just Jews, but there were all kinds of people of good conscience. And they came to see you when you were visiting in Moscow.
Yeah, very true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Marina, we have just about a minute left, and Fern's question was enormous. She said, please ask Marina to tell her and Lev's story about living under the KGB, giving birth to Aliyah. I have known her a long time and always learned from hearing her speak of her experiences, very powerful. Given the interest of time, if you want to say one or two things, and then this might be a good time to share with everybody that Marina was our guest on the Israelcast podcast, and she is going to be our next guest, and it goes up on, looking at my notes here, it goes up on May 13th, Wednesday, May 13th. So she tells her entire story on that episode of Israelcast. So you can go to jnf.org/Israelcast, or just search for Israelcast wherever you get your podcasts. So she tells that whole story. I think our conversation was about an hour then, wasn't it, Marina?
It was.
Yeah, so it's fairly detailed. So really, just in the interest of time, we're going to trail that episode of Israelcast. Well, Marina, thank you. Is there any one last sentence or two that you want to share with us? Just words of inspiration. I should say even more words of inspiration.
I don't have any words of inspiration. I have words of gratitude. Thank you all who joined. Thank you all who support JNF, all the leadership, all the donors on the call, all the people who believed that they could defeat evil empire and save Soviet Jews and change history of Jewish people forever. I thank you, and I will be forever grateful. And stay healthy, everyone, because we need and love every one of you.
And Marina, we say thank you. Really, this has been just an extraordinary conversation. And as I mentioned at the very top, I, who's had several conversations with you, am always getting inspired from you and always learning from you. So thank you again for this session. And with that, we want to hand it over to Vice President-elect of the Eastern PA Board, that's Dale Levitz. He's going to wrap it up for us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, as you said, Steve, my name is Dale, and I'm a member of that dysfunctional family that Marina referred to. She being our matriarch, and very proud and privileged to have her as our matriarch as well. And as you can tell why, not only is she a good person and a good leader, but also a great survivor and a victor above all. Nice to meet you as well, Steve, and thank you again for leading this. It was really very inspirational and motivational. And I want to remind people as well is that there are a lot of events going on throughout the course of this time that one can actually pick up of podcasts such as yours, the One Way Ticket Show, or the JNF's podcast, Israel Cast. There's also some of the events somewhere today, like the Israel Education Online by about a story of Zionism. There's also a couple tomorrow on the JNF, the New York Times best-selling author Matt Friedman discussing news about on the coronavirus, and so on and so on. But the good news as well is that there's something called JNF On Demand. If you want to go into the jnf.org, if you missed any of these. But again, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining. It's great that we could actually have this accomplished, and I thank both you and Steve once again, Steve and Marina once again for doing this.
Thank you. This was great. Look forward to doing it again. Let's have a round two, Marina. Are you there?
I think I got, I'm back.
We are. Everyone's there. Wow, still got people there.
If people want to hang out, we can each go to our cabinet, get wine, vodka, scotch, and continue this conversation.